Hey guys, so this video is a review on one of the 3 new units in King's Raid, and that unit is Shea. So Shea is actually the surprise for me as the one I actually enjoy most of the 3 new units. Excelica, I have on an alt account, and Crow, well, there's a ton of reports from Crow as he's by far the most popular of the 3, but Shea is the one that I am actually most impressed with. So I'll show you why in a second. So Shea, just other than her, amazingly cute looks that make her perfect waifu material, has a number of things going for her. Number one is, well, she's a bard, which is a fairly unique role in King's Raid, as we do have a number of buffs that affect the entire team, but most characters only get a single buff that does that. For example, Kala's skill 3, or Annette's skill 2, especially once you've traded for it. So Transcendence perk 5. But for Shea, each and every one of her skills affects the entire team. And she also, unlike other skills where you channel and then cast the skill, Shea's skills are all channeled, which means every single one of her skills require her to stand in place and cast the skill. So if I just go over here and go into skill info, I can show you what her skills look like and kind of explain just what makes Shea so strong. So Shea's biggest weakness is that these skills do need to be channeled in order to be used. So you've got her normal auto attack, and then each skill requires a channel. And they also have very long cooldowns, so 28 seconds for each one, and each of them only lasts for about 8 seconds. But attack speed doesn't really work on her. You cannot make these songs go out faster, which is good because if it did, then the songs would go out faster and you'd lose the effect, even if some of the effects happened a bit more often. But each one, as you can see, she starts playing a song, and this affects all of her allies. Now, she does not gain invulnerability to crowd control when doing this. She is very susceptible to crowd control, which means she is ideally paired with someone such as Mirianne or another shielder, who can give her a shield and prevent her from being disabled by the enemies. That way you can allow her to dance and sing for your entire team and get those buffs off for the entire team for their entire duration. You can cancel the buffs early just by simply recasting the skill. So if I press it again, she'll cancel the skill early. And the reason you want to do this is because her passive, Trance, is applied whenever you use a skill, but it's not when you use a skill, it's once the skill is finished. So I've got 2 trance stacks right here, and you can see them on her buff bar, and once the skill ends, I'll have a 3rd trance stack. And then how trance works is once you use a skill, if your trance is stacked up to 3, the skill gains an additional effect, kind of like Ezekiel going into Fury mode. So for the first one, the heal rate is increased by 100%, and all allies take 70% reduced damage. For the second one is amazing, as what it does is skills, MP recovery, and heal rates increased by 50%, and all allies will gain immunity to crowd control. And then the final one is Dance of Red Passion, and when used with Trance, the boosts are both raised by 100%, and it's got a continuous dispel effect. So obviously using the trance skills is amazing, but getting there is a little difficult because you need to cast and finish using the skill first without being crowd controlled. So if I quickly use Dance of Red Passion here, the damage goes way up, it doubles, but unfortunately she is still completely susceptible to crowd control here. So Shea, initially she was called Sia in the leaks, but she was changed to Shea. I'm not sure if it should be Shea for the English release. So Green Nature's Melody heals a total of, well, it heals HP over 8 times. For the duration of the skill, all allies take 35% reduced damage, and both these effects double in trance. So the healing is really nice. Like the healing, pretty good, pretty powerful, way better than Annette's second skill for healing. But the real value in this skill is the reduced damage. Because this applies to all your allies, it's almost like a pseudo shield without the crowd control immunity, in that all your allies become much, much tankier, simply because they're taking a lot less damage. And if you use it with Trance, it's almost impossible for your team to die unless they get burst down instantly with way too much damage. Her second skill, Blue Wind Song, recovers a total of 1360 mana of all allies over 8 times, and also has a small heal of the target with max mana. For the duration of the skill, crowd control duration is reduced by 50%, which means if they would land a 2-second stun on one of your allies while Shea is casting this spell, it becomes a 1-second stun. So this one is one of those powerful ones when tranced, because that 50%, the 50% reduction to crowd control duration becomes total immunity, which means, with the exception of Shea, because I believe she does not gain immunity to herself, your entire team gains immunity to crowd control. And I'm not sure if Shea gains immunity or not. I have to do more testing with it. But either way, giving an entire team immunity to crowd control is huge. Then finally, you have Dance of Red Passion, and this is a very powerful skill. So you kind of ignore the damage. You're not bringing this Shea for her own damage. You're bringing her because she massively increases the damage of your entire team with this Dance of Red Passion. Dance of Blue Wind Song is also pretty good because it's basically a mana battery for your entire team, which is nice because you don't have to raise Laius to T5 or raise Refi. You can just use Shea here. So Dance of Red Passion increases all allies' attack by a massive amount. So the tooltip right here says 56,000. That's a lot of attack. If used when Trance is stacked up to 3, the skill's damage and attack boost are increased by 100%, and all enemies' positive effects are continuously dispelled. So if you've got enemies that are giving themselves self-buffs, shields, anything like that, Shea's Dance of Red Passion will prevent that, and it'll also increase her team's damage hugely. Like, seriously, Dance of Red Passion, you turn this on right before your team's about to do their burst skills, and just watch the enemies melt. So those are Shea's skills. These are what her animations look like. She's so cute. She just dances around as she casts, except for when she's casting her first spell, where she kind of sits down and plays her healing lullaby for your team. Shea's unique weapon and unique treasure are also pretty good. So the unique treasure, I don't have it, and it's really PvP oriented. What it does is it makes her Dance of Red Passion, when you cast it, it silences all enemies for the first 2 seconds, which means she gets 2 seconds guaranteed of her song off, and also means that your team gets to attack for 2 seconds without worrying about being crowd controlled, and without worrying too much about anything else happening. It also increases the damage of Dance of Red Passion, but you don't really care about that, because, once again, you don't bring Shea for her damage. Trance, at the end of the skill, one more Trance is stacked. Trance can be stacked up to max 3 times, and its skill is used when Trance is stacked up to 3, consumes the stacks to heal all her allies as well. So that's the other little benefit of her passive. It does have a heal on it no matter which song you use to use that 3rd stack of Trance, which is pretty powerful. Her unique weapon is also very good. So Shea's unique weapon is Charming Melody Schwanheit. And its unique option is when Trance is stacked, all skill cooldown is reduced by 10% and recovers own mana by 200. And then this increases by 2% and 40 mana for every unique weapon star that you get. So the reason this is so good is because Shea's biggest weakness is the fact that if you're forced to cancel her songs early, she's going to be standing around doing nothing but sending off weak priest auto attacks for a while as she waits for other songs to come off cooldown. So by doing this, whenever you finish casting a song, all of her skill cooldowns will go down by 12%, and she'll get some mana back, which, because she doesn't get mana very often apart from her second song and her natural mana regeneration, because she's not auto-attacking, is pretty huge. So Charming Melody Schwanheit really just, it kind of makes up for the weaknesses in Shea's kit because of her unique channeling songs mechanic, and it's really just a pretty good unique weapon to have. Obviously, if you have the choice between having and not having a character's unique weapon, you pretty much always want to have it, but Schwanheit, I would say, is essential if you want to use Shea to, not even her max potential, but just to a good spot. So I'm going to be T5ing my Shea pretty soon. I'm just waiting for the Purification event because I've already T5'd one for the Transcendence Day event. But her Transcendence perks are pretty sweet. So for perk 1, as always for a priest, you want to go with attack up to increase the rate of their heals. For perk 2, I went with Goddess Blessing because I don't run Shea with another priest except at World Boss where I run her with Frey. And Frey is a good priest companion for Shea just because you don't want Shea to be interrupted, and Frey's shield means that Shea can cast an entire song, especially her third or second song, totally uninterrupted. Shea also has a huge AoE healing with her first and second songs, which makes up for Frey's somewhat lackluster healing ability if her shields are broken and the enemy starts to stack up damage on your team. For her Transcendence perks, there's a few different interesting quirks. So number one is her Dark perk is pretty much a PvP and story mode perk. You don't really want this for a world boss or bossing in general, just because at the start of every battle is something that only happens once in bosses or PvP. For PvP, it matters a lot because getting that first Trance stack is huge, as you only need to cast 2 songs to get the third song's Trance perk, which is pretty awesome. But outside of that, for bosses, getting 1 Trance stack and half a mana orb is not worth it. Her Light perk is pretty good because it gives her everything she wants. She doesn't care about attack speed. Crit doesn't really matter. Crit damage doesn't matter too much. But she wants attack, she wants defense and HP, and she wants crowd control resist so that she doesn't get interrupted playing her songs. I'll mention that right now. Shea wants crowd control resist like crazy. Like, I think she's probably the character in the game that most wants crowd control resist, just because if she gets interrupted, she's doing nothing for a while. She waits for her songs to come off cooldown. Also, if she gets interrupted, her song stops playing, and that's pretty bad as well, because it means she doesn't get I believe it means she doesn't get a Trance perk. So, basically Transcendence perks for her main skills are all pretty awesome. So Green Nature's Melody, Light is just an extra heal. I don't really care too much about that. Dark increases crit resistance of all allies by 250 while it's cast, which can be useful in PvP, as this further reduces the amount of damage an enemy team can do to you. And this can especially mess with characters such as Roa, who need to get their crits off to work, because if your crit resistance goes up, Roa's chance of critting goes down, and that reduces his damage by a huge amount. Blue and Song, so Light is pretty good because it gives an extra half mana orb to all her allies when used, which is 4 full mana orbs in World Boss or any other 8-man content. It's 4.5 in Dragon. Blue and Song Dark increases attack speed of all allies by 250 while it's cast, which is also pretty huge because this is a pretty big damage buff to your entire team during a song that's already giving them more mana and is keeping their health topped up. Dance of Red Passion is probably the one that is the most deserving of Transcendence perk, and it's a shame that you can't take both of these, because they're both really good. So Dance of Red Passion Light reduces skill cooldown for all allies by 10% when used, which kind of makes her similar to Audi in that she's one of the few characters in the game that can reduce your allies' skill cooldowns. Dance of Red Passion Dark increases the amount of damage that enemies receive by 15% while it's cast, which means if you cast Dance of Red Passion, especially when it's tranced, then not only are you removing all your enemies' positive effects, their shields, their buffs, anything like that, and doing damage to them and increasing your allies' attack by a huge amount, you are also increasing the damage they take while increasing the damage your allies do. So with this, Shea's Dance Red Passion Dark basically becomes 8 full seconds of we are going to totally destroy you, especially if Trance is up, because that means not only is Shea going to totally destroy you, she's also going to prevent you from doing anything at all apart from trying to crowd control her to prevent this from happening. It's an insanely powerful perk. Trance Light, I would just ignore this. It increases the heal rate of Trance by 100%, but because Trance only occurs once after every 4 spellcasts, it doesn't really matter too much. Trance Dark is not too bad though. Trance Dark, it kind of goes hand in hand with Dance of Red Passion Dark, in that if a skill is used when there are 3 Trance stacks, it inflicts magic damage to enemies instead of healing her allies, and it reduces all defenses by 10% for 10 seconds. So if this is a flat reduction, which would apply before anything else, it would be pretty awesome. I'm not sure if what order it applies in compared to your other allies' kind of defense reductions, but it's not too bad. And if you take it with the Dance of Red Passion Dark, then you can really make that the Dance of Red Passion your go time. This synergizes really well with Crow, actually, just because Crow is a character who really heavily relies on a window of power. He wants to stack up using his first skill and his auto attacks. He wants to stack up those hunting dog stacks, and then he wants to blow the enemy up with a maximum power laser. By using the Dance of Red Passion Dark, you both give him a lot more attack power, you increase the amount of damage the enemies are going to take from his laser, and you reduce their defenses all at once. In fact, if you're using Crow, I would not go Blue Wind Song, I would go with Trance Dark, just because Crow doesn't care about attack speed. Now, Blue Wind Song Dark, really I find the competition for Transcendence perks for T3 and 4 come between Blue Wind Song Dark and Trance Dark. So Blue Wind Song Dark is pretty huge for increasing all your allies' attack speed. This is huge for World Boss, it's huge for Guild Raid, it's huge just in general because it makes what is mostly a utility in restoring mana, reducing crowd control duration, and healing if anyone gets to full mana. It turns what is mostly a utility spell into a spell that increases all your allies' damage. Trance Dark is more about windows of power. Blue Wind Song, yes, it gives you a window of power, but it does not synergize with her other window of power in Dance of Red Passion. If you use Dance of Red Passion, you are not using Blue Wind Song, and vice versa, which means you're only gaining one of the two powerful effects. And honestly, if you're going to choose one, you choose Dance of Red Passion every time, because that the attack boost on the Dance of Red Passion is insane. So by going with Trance Dark, you get a bigger hit from Dance of Red Passion, all your allies will do more damage, and it also kind of makes up for the fact that apart from these two somewhat smaller amps, Shea does not have any other, well, she has amps, but she doesn't have any kind of amps the way Sonya does, where you make the target take more damage. She has amps she amplifies her allies' damage. Blue Wind Song, it'll give your entire team more attack speed, it'll give your entire team more mana if you're using Black Dragon set, more mana than you get from the light effect, honestly, which is pretty funny. And it'll give your team 2 windows of power with Dance of Red Passion and Blue Wind Song Dark, whereas Trance Dark will increase the window of power for Dance of Red Passion, but it'll make your entire team do slightly less damage overall than Blue Wind Song if you've got a team that has very consistent damage dealers. World Boss, I would actually say Trance Dark is probably better, just because World Boss, what you want to be doing is using all your damage cooldowns on the boss when it's in its down state, which only happens about once every 30 seconds anyways. So by saving up all your big damage cooldowns, you can save Shea's Dance of Red Passion and use that to proc her Trance and do a massive hit on the world boss. Of course, if you don't want to pay as much attention, Blue Wind Song is much easier. You don't have to micromanage it as much. It'll increase your team's damage hugely anyways, and quite honestly, for world boss, you can just take all 3 because you generally don't want Shea Dark anyways, and Shea Light's pretty good, but for world boss, you can just use someone like Frey to kind of cover for Shea's need for CC resist. For perk 2, you've got a few options. You don't want Vengeful Curse because, unless you're doing PvP. If you're doing PvP, take Vengeful Curse to avoid Epices one-shotting Frey in the backline, or Shea in the backline. Take Goddess Blessing if you need to increase your allies' crit. You're not running another Priest at the moment. Inner Peace, you take this if you're running another Priest. I take it on Frey though because, well, Shea's already running Goddess Blessing. And then Blessing of Mana is if you really want more mana and you find that your Shea just doesn't have enough mana available, you can take this because this will massively increase the amount of mana that Shea has available to her at any given time. But personally, I never really find that my Shea wants for mana. As long as she's not being crowd controlled out of her spells, you will find it pretty easy to, well, basically get the mana for Shea, especially thanks to her second skill, Blue Wind Song. So, how to build Shea? The 3 primary things she wants are max HP, attack, and CC resist, in reverse order. CC resist is probably number 1 for Shea, up to the soft cap, just because, like I said, if her songs get interrupted, she's doing nothing. Attack is number 2 because her attack will increase the amount of healing she does on her Green Nature's Melody, and it's just good to have in general. And then finally, max HP will make her harder to kill and make her less susceptible to being burst down all at once. After that, you can choose between crit or some form of defense. Personally, I'm looking for crit, attack, CC resist, max HP gear for my Shea, just to make her survival as possible and make her heals as potent as possible. I don't mind getting crit damage, but I'm kind of trying to avoid attack speed as well as penetration, lifesteal, and other less useful basically lines on Shea. Her damage just isn't enough to take advantage of lifesteal. She doesn't need penetration because you're not bringing her for damage. And most of the other things you can get, such as PDef or MDef, while they're not bad to get, I would prefer to have max HP and a way to improve her healing. Anyways, guys, Shea is a great hero. She's cute as hell. Out of the 3 heroes that were released, I would definitely say Sona here is the best one. Jin and Leona just aren't as good, but Shea here, definitely the best one by far. And quite honestly, I feel that if you can get her, and especially if you get her unique weapon, building her is not something you'll regret unless you've already raised a ton of other healers such as Kala and Mei, who fulfill kind of similar amping and world boss and other boss killing roles. Anyways, guys, I love Shea. I hope this review has kind of convinced you to love Shea as well. She's a great hero. She's cute as hell. And her animations are top tier, as are her skill set. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. Subscribe if you liked it, and have a good one.